Aloha, good afternoon.
Hi, you guys. I'm Nikki.
I'm Diane.
We've been wanting to do this for a long time on our own journeys and then individually. And here we are, bringing together a conscious conversation series for you guys.
Absolutely. And it's called Rise and Remember. It took us some time to kind of come together with what we were going to call this show.
Yes, because we don't want to be pulpit sitting gurus barking, right? We want to have our own intuitive ideas surface, share our ideas, what's come up for us in our own lives, and then provide a space for you to remember, to reconnect with your own guru, your own wisdom keeper inside. And just our own lives are so like we're a micro of the macro, right? So I feel like as a teacher, healer person in the world here in Miami, one of the ways that I support my students and clients is just telling them what's going on in my own life. Because if it's happening to me, it's happening to you, it's happening to you. Like we are all little examples of what we're all going through.
Absolutely. I think stories are essential. And that's something that I do all the time with my nursing students is tell them stories and make a connection between the diagnosis and the person. Because we're all people and we're all going through these challenges. So we hope to bring some insights as to your own inner intuition that is guiding you throughout this show. And we're excited to start. So I am Diane Vick, and this is
Nikki Benoit.
I work with high responsibility professionals. So usually this is nurses, doctors, and medical personnel like firefighters. They usually come into the office because they say that their labs look fine, but they don't feel fine. They're feeling anxiety, they're having digestive issues, they're having mood problems. And I've seen this over and over again as 20 years of experience in emergency nursing that this is a pattern. And I know this chronic stress pattern, and it's showing up as overdrive, feeling shut down, feeling physical disruption. So my work is identifying how prolonged responsibility has trained the body to operate and then help them correct it. And Nikki,
I've really clamped onto prolonged responsibility. Like
yeah,
that's what I wanna come back to that. But hi, my name is Nikki Benoit, and I am calling myself a spiritual energy coach here in Miami. I really don't feel a label can encapsulate the ever-changingness of what I'm offering in the world. But what I'm really passionate about doing is helping us build a new humanity rooted in love, oneness, equality, and our true soul nature. I feel like part of what the title of our podcast says, Rise and Remember, is as we rise, old patterns for the human behavior were to have puppet strings and follow steps that some guru, teacher, doctor, lawyer, politician, parent, some authority figure told us to do. So it just continually erodes that true answer of all questions, which is your own connection to your own inner wisdom, a soul-led life, an intuitively guided life. And it's messy. It is unpredictable. It is inaccurate sometimes, right? But there's so much transformation that you get to experience with yourself as you follow what you think is your intuition. And then you get the backlash of, okay, maybe that wasn't my intuition, right? But we need those moments. And I think that's one of the things that she and I are so excited to share is the messiness of this ascension in consciousness. So to summarize, elevator pitch style, I am a spiritual energy coach and I provide different tools, services, and practices for you to access your own inner wisdom. I'm a Reiki master teacher, yoga teacher, meditation, breath work. I channel the Akashic records. This is the information storage space of your soul's journeys, of all things journeys. And I am a theta healing practitioner. I help you go in and work with theta brainwave frequencies to flush, clear anything that's not supporting you. I'm really focused on beliefs right now. That is a huge piece of all things. It's part of my shadow work template of services that I provide. I think that's all I'm doing right now. I don't know. There's so many things. But again, back to my original point is I'm really passionate about helping people live a life that lights them up because we all win when you're living a life that lights you up.
absolutely. I think that's how we all evolve, grow, and heal is finding a way to love the experience that you're in and living in the present moment and not drifting into the past and the things that should have been, but staying here present in the moment. And I love how we both bring in so many different things, right? We have all these degrees and all these things that we've studied. I've also studied Reiki, started learning yoga, but haven't quite finished it. Nurse for 20 years, love hypnosis. Think hypnosis is a very, very powerful tool to reset the body and the nervous system. And I think it's just amazing that we can combine all these modalities and help guide people to heal within that gap, the gap that medicine doesn't necessarily meet us at. We have to find our own way of healing, and our intuitive insights is really what helps us do that.
Yes. And I love that you have so much experience in the Western medicine world. And I know, fortunately, a lot of other, uh, I don't like to say alternative health because true natural health is from divine energy. It's, our true nature is to be healthy. But when you have someone who is learned in the Western medicine practices, also on a spiritual expansion path, it's this beautiful bridge. And I feel like that's the direction humanity's heading in general is, I see it like a pendulum. It's kind of utopian, divine, um, utopian, divine, I don't even know. Let's just keep talking. This utopian, you know, beautiful life of all things nature and creator and peace and harmony, all things. And then with the fall of humanity, so we have this ego consciousness, and that took us all the way on the other side. And we're like living in the illusion of separation and violence and the separation, like just all the heaviness that comes with the ego's illusion of separation from oneness. And so it's like this pendulum is like swinging back and forth, but when we can blend both, like we can bring the mystical, which I consider the feminine, and weaving it into the pre-established masculine. That's, to me, that's heaven on earth. I don't know, I strayed off my initial point, but I feel like that's blending the masculine and the feminine. It's blending the mystical with the physical. That's really where the rubber meets the road, for the lack of a better phrase. Yeah, so it's not one or the other.
I like that you brought in the pendulum because that actually put something else in my mind. So in medicine, you always see the scale, right? The scale that tips to one direction or the other direction if you're falling too much on one side or the other. So the way I saw it was, for me, my learning experience was medicine, right? I started in medicine, nursing. And then I started incorporating this alternative healing. And when I was stuck in just the medicine part of it, I was tipped over into this chronic illness and this chronic pain and all of these symptoms. But when I started to dip into the alternative part of me and started to fill up that weighting scale, things started to balance out. So I like how we're bringing in different modalities, different realms of healing, but it all leads to our own inner intuition and trusting that inner guidance to get to our destination.
Yeah. Yes. And love that you brought that up too, because I came into this spiritual world that I live in through science. I majored in wildlife ecology and conservation because I wanted to find a way to help get wild animals out of zoos. I was told we need to conserve them, keep them safe by putting them in cages. And I'm like, that's such an insult. If the human race was in peril, which we're not, thriving here in our ways. But like, and if some alien came and plucked me out of my life and put me on their planet in a safe little cage, but it's for my own good, like that would suck, right? I would much rather not have that happen to me. And so I just started to see through the animal's eyes, and I'm like, humans there's got to be a better way to conserve animals without taking away their freedom. So I came about my own life unfolding through the path of science and trying to help animals. And it was in that path, the more I learned, the more I was developing my science understanding and following ecology, which is what I majored in, and learning like the little minutia and the little fine tinkerings and genetics and like all the things. It guided me down to see what the human enterprise has been doing. And that's what opened up my heart, which brought in a lot of pain. I was very sad and depressed about the state of the world and the urban sprawl and the destruction of wildlands. Like I dove into this topic so much that it was very painful. And because I knew if I want to be of service to animals and nature, I can't be miserable. I can't be sad and depressed. I can't be angry. I got to find a way to be at peace with all this so that I can access ideas to be a positive influence, because angry isn't going to get me anything. It's not going to help anybody, right? We all know that to some degree. But so anyway, the more I took what I was learning and I let myself metabolize it and understand it and learn it, it guided me to find some solution, which was meditation and breath work. And I wasn't interested in doing either of those things, but it was like the only thing that kept me sane and starting to feel okay with. And then I got into yoga. And then I realized that I was also a very negative Nelly. I didn't believe in the woo-woo. I didn't believe in crystals and essential oils. But my pain, my pain was driving me toward the meditation and the yoga. And then the people would talk about these other things. So I went about, because of my science background, I went very skeptically into the other things through the yoga and the meditation and the breath work. And so my skepticism was kind of like rolling her eyes when I would listen to people talk about these other healing things like oils and, like I said, sound healing and all these. I'm like, oh, give me a break. But I love that I had that skepticism going into it, because that gave me a very refined understanding, and I met my own ego's resistance. And so I know how to work with my own ego. And I know how to honor the ego for doing a very good job at trying to protect me from being, made fun of or fooled, or right. But so by doing that, I have those tools to support other people as they're looking for solutions that go outside of their wheelhouse, outside of what feels normal to them. So I know what it's like to have a skeptical that says, that doesn't make sense to me. So rather than throwing it all out, lean in, see what happens. Next thing you know, you're a spiritual healer.
I like how you talked about early in the beginning about being trapped, that the animals being trapped in the cages, because that like put into my mind back when I was trapped in my body with chronic pain and migraines every day and all of these horrible digestive issues. And getting to a point where my doctor actually told me, if you don't leave your career, you're going to die. That was a big eye-opening experience for me, because I was like, that isn't an option. I just got here. I was a teacher before, like that. This is where I want to be. You can't tell me I need to end it. So I had to work through my own skepticism and find alternative ways to begin to heal my body. And I also started with meditation and learning to calm down and really let go of that hyperactive mind that I have, that has all these thoughts that continuously pop in while I was trying to meditate, was really interesting early on in the beginning. And it's good to see the big transition that's happened over these 10, 15 years to the state of meditation that I can achieve now, and that relaxation that I experience now. But it all started back then, and it all started with that one comment from my doctor that you need to find a way out, because that was my way of saying, okay, there has to be an alternative to just leaving my career. There has to be a better way where I can stay here, serve my community, and still maintain my body and make sure I nurture myself from within.
Diane, you just hit like the home run topic that I've been circling back to for the last many months. It's the choice point. We're at a collective human choice point right now. We get to go the very popular path of that person's right or that person's right. Like, that's very divisive. Is like, I'm right, you're wrong. But there's a third option. There's an alternative. There's, it's often our brain will go to either or. But when we do what you did and you pause and you're like, okay, well, I have to find a way. It's just that willingness, that curiosity that was like, all right, I don't want to leave. I can't stay. What else is there to do? That, you guys, we need to incorporate that curiosity and that question into our own lives with, not just our own personal experiences, but as a collective human race. Like right now, from where I'm sitting and seeing things, for example, what I see people doing, disagree. I don't want to go that path. Doing absolutely nothing, that doesn't gel either. So what's the third option? And for me, it's just letting that third option just kind of ripple through. And what that does is it raises my vibration, because I'm no longer being tethered by the this or that. And it allows a channel of wisdom that sees beyond line of sight, you guys. Because what I know right now is If you have a situation in your life where you're like, oh, I can't stand this. This is not working. I'm frustrated, and you're pushing and you're pulling and you're resisting whatever situation that you're in and you're wanting out. Just feel into what that's like. You want out. You don't care. You just want out. That part of you that wants out will never get the solution. They can't. They're not wired for the solution. They will never receive from some kind of an idea. So what we need to do as stewards of frequency, stewards of change, stewards of evolution, is to go inside and talk to that freaking out part. Say, I hear you. You know that what's happening isn't okay. This can't continue. Something has to change. And I see that it's valid. This is a very valid desire for change. And just hang out with that part of you that's freaking out, justifiably. Validate it, listen to it, feel it, and be an attention. Give attention, give curious attention, not resistant and frustrated attention to that part of you that is so freaking out and wanting change. And just let it feel seen, let it feel validated and heard and sat with, right? Like sometimes we have toddlers or people who are freaking out, just often sitting with the freaked out person can make them feel a little bit more calm and like safe, right? So it's bringing a sense of safety to yourself while you're in that freaking out, wanting something to change. And as soon as you do that, your vibration rises, and then you'll have access to that third option. What else could we do? If it's not that, it's not nothing. And then you might get like a little bit of a breadcrumb of, you know what? I haven't talked to Jim in a long time. He was looking for a project. Maybe I'll reach out to Jim. Maybe. And the next thing you know, you call Jim. Jim's totally random, by the way. But so now you're talking to Jim and he's like, yeah, I was just thinking about, this community project. I was going, oh, well, Jim, I'm thinking there's this, I'm really wanting to support change in my world. And like maybe your community project. So you'll start to get these intuitive hits. And that's something Diane and I are really driven by with this. Part of our purpose of co-creating and birthing this podcast platform is to put nuggets on your path that help you access your own intuitive wisdom. So that's a way that you could start to weave that third option, your intuitive guidance, into any challenge or anything you're working on in life.
I think it's important for us to always connect with ourselves in meditation and quietness, because that's when we find that there is not only this and that, there is the other. But we can't hear that inner voice until we slow down, until we go sit out in nature and rest against a tree and allow the thoughts to drift out. That's stressful, that overwhelmed child that's freaking out about whatever the situation you're going through is. Calm yourself down, and then all of a sudden that third option comes out. And I think that's pretty much how this podcast kind of started, right? Because I've been wanting to restart my podcasting forever, and she's been wanting to start it too. And all I had was this or that, and then all of a sudden we got together, and now we had the other option.
Yeah, yeah. And then actually, I want to circle back because it's still hovering over here. What your introduction statement included, which was talking about the person, say the first responder, who is so programmed into doing things in a certain way. That kind of feeds into what we're talking about right now. And I want to circle back and refer to that phenomenon as puppet strings, you guys. And so, as we were saying, as we're all feeling, not all, but some of us are feeling an internal stir. We don't know what it is. We can't put our finger on it, but there's something that's being asked of us, and we don't know how to follow it. As Diane and I are saying, like doing the pause and then being curious, doing something differently. That's been one of my oracle cards that I keep pulling every morning. I pull 3 every morning, and that's been a repeated one. Do something differently today. What happens when we do that is we start to slowly unpluck puppet strings that we didn't realize. We're creatures of habit. We didn't realize that we were on this automatic robot kind of like behavior, right? We don't know we're doing that because we're creatures of habit. But what those little repetitive patterns and behaviors are, they're puppet strings. So And I don't know where I still have puppet strings. Diane doesn't know where she has hers either, and most of them are rooted in survival. So you're going to get some like freak out if you try to just snip a puppet string that your subconscious thinks is keeping you alive. That's part of the work that I do is help find those things. So just being curious and what can I do different today? Here's one of my fun projects that I encourage my new students and clients to do is let your intuition start to build its muscle. And here's a fun way to do it. Put two shirts every morning before you get dressed for your day. Put two shirts on your bed that you might want to wear. And let your internal guidance system, not your brain that says, well, I'm having spaghetti lunch with Susan later, so I don't want to wear the white because I might get spaghetti. Like, don't do that. Stay off the top floor. Let some kind of internal like sensation or some other knowingness guide you toward the green shirt or guide you toward the white shirt. Like just start to play with this. Or for your lunch, which sandwich should you have? Ooh, that's dicey, right? So like getting out of the typical ways that we make decisions, like just start to do things differently. What you notice, again, you're building neuroplasticity. I shouldn't say again because I haven't said it yet, but you're building neuroplasticity, right? You're starting to soften the grip of we got to do it this way in the brain, but you're also telling your nervous system and your entire cellular memory that, hey, there's a whole new world that we can start, and that changes your energy. It does so many great things. That's one of the ways you can pluck your puppet strings.
I think it's super important to expand on that intuition because we're not raised to be intuitive. We're raised to follow the crowd, to be the yes man or yes mom or whatever it is. So building the intuition was like a big step for me early on. And one of the things that I used to do is I was literally be driving in my car and I know how to get to work. I know I usually make a right. That's the direction that I usually go to work. But I said, no, today I'm gonna ask myself a question. Should I go left? Should I go right? Or should I go center? And I would go that way. And the days that I wouldn't listen, I would get the worst traffic. And I would be stuck. And I said, I need to start doing this more. I need to be growing this muscle because there is something to it. And you could do the same thing with your food, like she said, the clothes you're going to wear. And slowly you start getting these intuitive insights with your body, and like your heart lights up when you see this shirt and you're like, that's the one I gotta wear. Or you have a ring that's on the counter and you haven't worn it in forever, but all of a sudden you saw it and it's like, okay, today's the day you're supposed to wear it. You're supposed to use that intuition for your advantage.
Yeah, and there's a reason for it, but we're used to pledging allegiance to all things analytical, masculine, doing, thinking, factual, spreadsheet, right? The feminine is the unknowable, the uncontrollable, the deep feels. It's that untamed wild. That's the feminine energy. And again, because I say this stuff so many times, I feel like I've already said it here, but I haven't. But so we are all a blend of masculine and feminine energies. There's no biology tied into either. It's just the frequencies. Masculine is like active, analytical, and doing. Feminine is receptive and feeling and spiritual and like dissolving. So, but to Diane's point, when you feel this some reason, somehow I'm feeling called to do this, I want to share an example that I was shared with one of my teachers from my early intuition development from 20 years ago. Hi, baby.
Hi.
There was a woman who hated her job and she was driving to work and she had this impulse to get off the freeway. She was running late. But she had this impulse to go get off the freeway and go to a drugstore. She's like, but I don't have time. I really shouldn't go. I got this stupid job. Like, but she followed the impulse for whatever reason, got off the exit, went into the drugstore, and she bumped into a high school friend who was the CEO of a company that this woman has loved for years. And she's like, I'm looking for an executive director to, hire. Do you know anyone looking for a job? The lady's like, I am. So she ended up getting this brilliant job that she loves. And so her intuition, her higher self, spirit, whatever you want to call it, something guided her to forego being on time for the job she hated, that she's been wanting to get rid of. Something told her, take that exit, to go to the drugstore and get the cough syrup that she didn't even need for 2 days because she was bringing it to her brother, whatever. I don't remember. So that's the point, you guys. Like, start to get familiar with that subtle call. And then something happens when you take action on behalf of it. Actions are anchors. So when you take action on behalf of an intuitively guided direction, you are anchoring confidence. You're anchoring your commitment to this other way, to this third option into your physical world, just strength. And what that does is it's strengthening the pipeline of communication, right? And so it also gets us to have more self-respect because the more positive feedback you get on your own intuitive promptings, like when Diane is listening to herself, going left instead of right or whichever, and it turns out to be the best route for her, she's like, hey, she's starting to re-emphasize her commitment to her own authority. And that's another one of my passions. I do retreats here in Miami. And one of the big themes is self-leadership and cultivating a more empowered and trusting relationship with yourself, because it's going to just get more chaotic, you guys. Our external conditions are crumbling. They have to keep showing their asses as completely incompetent in order for the system to collapse. The new system can't emerge while the old system is still seducing us into it, right? So yeah, that's a different episode, but
definitely
there's a lot more we could say on that front.
But I'd say as humans, our human experience is to experience pain. It's to learn from these hard times. It's to go through the challenges. That's what we decided we wanted to do when we came to this earth, you know? And our intuition is what helps us get through those challenges smoother. It's more like riding the wave than being trapped in something. Sometimes the intuition guides you in the easiest way out of a situation. But if we don't take that first step to listen to it, we can't flow through the challenge. Because all of a sudden, when you do that, the tears go away, life becomes easier, the challenge isn't quite as long. And it all starts with just listening to your gut instinct and taking that step.
Yes, and I love that you said, I love your point about pain, because we have been programmed to run from pain and to do everything we can to avoid the pain, but the pain is the way often. Pain is a very normal, natural part of life. And what we add to it when we are in any situation, whether it's literal, emotional, mental, physical, if we're resisting it, that's actually adding onto. So like if I had my hand squished underneath a brick and I just left it there and I'm like barking, this shouldn't have been happening, this shouldn't have. Well, that's only going to keep it in pain longer. But when I say, okay, that happened, and I can remove my hand and I can start the triage process, the pain won't last as long. But what we do is we complain and we piss and moan, and this shouldn't happen, and that just compounds the discomfort. But when you can just say, you know what, pain is a part of this human story, and you relax into it, like my back I'll keep this short, but my back seized up a little bit last night for a good reason. Like I'm not for a good reason, but I made a beautiful initiative forward, and it opened up beautiful things. And so there was this little kind of like emotional collapse in my low back. I was like, wait a second, in a past life we got killed for this. And I'm like, okay. So I was breathing into it, but rather than running from the pain and medicating it and trying to make it shut up because it's a messenger, I just been leaning into it, and I heard what it had to say. I was able to validate it, and it's been getting better throughout the days. But so listening to the pain, often, like those curb finding bumps on the side of the road, they're just telling you when your wheel has veered off the lane just a bit. And so just course correct a little and it'll go smooth again.
I find it very interesting that both of us had lower back pain this week right before
in
launching.
The same day.
Yeah, launching this podcast. So I met with her the other day, and I had just pulled out my back. First day of back into nursing school after the holidays, getting ready, knowing that this podcast was coming, and so many things that had to be done this week that my back just gave out. And it was just like an awareness of, what is this telling me? Why is there a part of me that's scared of all of these things that are things that I want, things that I have worked towards, right? Nurse practitioner school is something I have worked towards to be here. Finally, everything aligning for this podcast to start. But there's always a little part of you that's scared, and you got to really love and cherish that part and nurture the pain and deal with those symptoms, but still learn from them and move forward, right? I told her the last time I remember pulling my back like this was the day that I was going to go skydiving. And I said, no, you're not doing this to me. I'm going to figure this out. And I'm still jumping out of that airplane. And I did. And it was the best experience ever. But I did not allow the pain to stop me. I allowed it to teach me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this podcast is all about. We want you to rise and remember, because your internal guidance is teaching you exactly where to go.
Yes, exactly. And to her point, I think we're going to wrap up, but to her point, the pain has a message. Oftentimes, the pain is just trying to guide us towards something that is really more aligned with who we are. Many of us are living a life that isn't a life we want to live. Many of us don't even know the life we want to live. So, when we have made a declaration that we want to live with our soul guiding us, we want to live a more authentic and empowered life. If you're really serious about that decision, those misalignments start to get louder. They start to get your attention so that you can do what she said, direct loving attention toward the screaming pain, direct loving attention toward whatever is like pulsing for your attention, because that's all it ever needed to begin with. Things will soften and then the ways will come clear.
Awesome. Well, I guess that wraps up this episode. We hope you're here next week to check us out for our
Yes.
second episode of Rise and Remember. We're so excited. We still don't know the exact date, but we will be back next week.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with a lot more nuggets to share, and then eventually have you guys chime in live so we can run with some of your comments and questions. So thank you guys for tuning in if you stayed this long. We'll see you next
Aloha.
time.
Bye.